At the start of the month, Me Too lawyer Lisa Bloom earned a brutal ratio on a tweet about Biden accuser Tara Reade, saying, quote, "I believe you, Tara Reade. You have people who remember you told them about this decades ago. We know he's handsy. You're not asking for money. You've obviously struggled mightily with this, but I still have to fight Trump, so I will still support Joe. But I believe you, and I'm sorry." In a strange way, I kind of appreciate that take. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't appreciate suddenly abandoning your entire career of aggressively prosecuting sexual abuse allegations against other men solely because the politics of this man are more to your taste, but at least it's honest. At least it's saying straight up, yes, politics is more important to me than every other principle I've previously claimed to uphold about defending women. It's honestly wrong, but at least it's honest about its priorities. At least we can engage honestly in debating the order of those priorities. Am I giving too much credit simply for being 1 degree above rock bottom dishonesty? Yeah, maybe. But my point is, it does in fact get worse. When confronted with a case where her believe women principles conflicted with her political priorities, at least Lisa Bloom didn't try to sledgehammer the square peg into the round hole. She just said, screw it. I'll admit it. It's about politics, and it's probably been about politics the whole time. In the New York Times opinion pages, though, they are eagerly saying, hey, pass that sledgehammer over here. We're going to give this one a whack. The piece is called "Believe All Women is a Right-Wing Trap" by Susan Faludi. Apology for any mispronunciation. She's a feminist Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and author, now setting her sights on a mental gymnastics medal. The central argument of the piece is that the phrase "believe all women" has never been the feminist mantra, that no feminist actually thinks we should believe everything women say, that "believe all women" is just a straw man created by opportunistic right-wingers averse to principle, but skilled in distorting and exploiting the principles of the left. Feminism, the author writes, is about individualism. It's about freeing every woman from the concept of all women. All women should be free from the concept of all women. That's a paradox. You can't simultaneously fight against and for the same thing. And if it's truly about individualism, then gender is an irrelevant consideration. But I get what she's saying, or at least what she's trying to say. She means women should be treated as individuals. They shouldn't be disbelieved on account of their sex. Feminists have varying, nuanced opinions, and they're being misrepresented as a bunch of groupthink totalitarians, she writes. Oh yeah, absolutely no groupthink here. This is a totally original piece from a feminist who only thinks and speaks for herself. Odd, then, that an almost identical piece, making an almost identical argument about an almost identical concept, was published just last week in the Washington Post to much less attention. Groupthink would be the kindest possible way to characterize this piece, instead of just outright plagiarism. But hey, that's none of my business. I'm sure it's just coincidence. And coincidental groupthink doesn't count. The main argument of the piece is that "believe all women" is a straw man invention of conservative commentators, created by the likes of Newsbusters, Tucker Carlson, Kellyanne Conway, and others, but never actually uttered by serious or influential feminists. The author says she did a thorough Twitter search to find the origins of the hashtag to discover the phrase "believe all women" is actually more commonly used by detractors than proponents. First of all, it is not an invention or only rarely found on irrelevant accounts. There are plenty of cases of prominent feminists and Democrats tweeting explicitly and specifically #BelieveAllWomen. Here are examples from 2 congresswomen during the Kavanaugh hearing. But second, the general concept "believe all women" isn't comprehensively captured or accounted for simply by searching strictly the hashtag #BelieveAllWomen. We have no shortage of prominent feminist figures expressing this general sentiment in slightly varied ways. During the Kavanaugh hearing, Kirsten Gillibrand tweeted in part, "Do we believe women? We must fight to be a country that answers yes every time." That tweet doesn't contain the hashtag #BelieveAllWomen, but it is a tweet from a prominent feminist that clearly says "believe all women." The Women's March tweeted last summer, "We still believe all survivors." And since Christine Blasey Ford counts as a survivor here with absolutely zero evidence, It seems fair to say believe all women is the intended message of that tweet. For this piece to argue that because believe all women is more frequently used to mock or criticize feminism than it is as a feminist mantra, ignores the dynamics of how Twitter works. A prominent feminist account like Kirsten Gillibrand or the Women's March tweets out the believe all women message, and then hundreds or maybe thousands more accounts reply with criticism. But that numeric difference doesn't mean that believe all women wasn't the intended message of the original post. And the piece even cites an example of this dynamic itself. It reads, in the fall of 2015, Hillary Clinton posted a tweet that read, quote, "To every survivor of sexual assault, you have a right to be heard. You have a right to be believed." To which Juanita Broaddrick replied, "Hillary tried to silence me." And David French retweeted her asking, "Believe all women?" with a question mark. How is this evidence that no feminist ever sincerely says believe all women and the whole thing is just a right-wing invention? Hillary said every sexual assault survivor should be believed, and then critics responded. That's not just non-evidence, it's actually counter-evidence. It shows, one, that prominent feminists do actually say believe all women sincerely, and two, that conservatives didn't just make that up. They're responding directly to a claim. Ah, yes, but that's interpretation. That's paraphrasing. That's your own representation, not a direct quote, I suspect this author might say. Fair enough, but you still have to explain why that paraphrasing is inaccurate, or at least less accurate than your own bizarre interpretation. The author says it's out of bounds for conservatives or feminist critics to present a simple summary of what these tweets say, but apparently it's totally fair for the author herself to play Stretch Armstrong with her own interpretations. The hashtag isn't believe all women, the author writes, it's just believe women, for good reason, because inserting the word all makes a big difference. It's not about believing them all. It's about countering and correcting a history of disbelieving women by default, the ancient practice of hashtag doubt women. So somehow believe women doesn't mean believe all, it just means don't doubt them. I don't see how including or excluding the word all makes some big difference. Believe women implies believe all women. It implies that women are to be believed solely on the basis of being women. Thus, if you are a woman, you are to be believed by default. Thus, believe all women. At bare minimum, that seems like a much more logical and fair interpretation of believe women than believe women somehow means don't doubt women by default on account of their sex. That's a much more distorted twisting with which the critics would generally agree anyway. In any case, you can't simultaneously argue against the critics for supposedly dishonestly distorting the hashtag, all while giving yourself the benefit of interpreting the hashtag into whatever convenience you want. And most frustratingly, the author never completes the argument. Even if we play along with her interpretation, the argument falls apart. If believe women doesn't mean believe all women, then the question you must answer is believe women when? Or believe women on what basis? And the author never explains. She just gives examples where women weren't automatically believed and it led to negative consequences. So I'll have to do her work for her and propose the only two options I can think of. You have evidence or you have politics. You can say believe women when the evidence supports their claims, but that's not actually believe women. That's believe evidence. And that's the philosophy that the critics have been advocating the whole time. Or you can say believe women when their politics are correct, but again, that's not actually believe women. That's believe politics, and that is also the point the critics have been making the whole time. But either way, if believe women is not in fact believe all women, then you must explain what distinguishes women who are to be believed versus women who aren't. Because if you don't, well, then your position is, in fact, believe all women. That's not just a critic's distortion. That is your own necessary conclusion based on your own failure to explain otherwise. When you criticize others for lacking principle, you create an obligation on yourself to explain your principles. But this piece never does. In fact, everything this author accuses others of, lacking principle, lacking evidence, distorting arguments to suit conveniences, she herself does. And that's why I maintain a shred of respect for Lisa Bloom for just folding and saying, fuck it. You know what? You got me. There are, in fact, some things more important than believing women, like, for example, honesty. At least there's just a little something to credit there. In this case, I can't even credit creativity or imagination, since this piece was creatively imagined by someone else a week ago. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel always. Appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Twitter, that is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Goodbye.